The blue-white glow of Earth filled the view screen as Maya Bennett guided the small shuttle toward the rendezvous point. Her heart raced despite years of training for this moment, humanity's first diplomatic meeting with the Luraxi delegation. Houston Control to Ambassador Bennett, you are cleared for docking with the Luraxi vessel. The calm voice of Mission Director Harlow came through her headset. Acknowledged, Control. Beginning final approach, Maya responded, her fingers dancing across the controls with practiced precision. The title of Ambassador still felt strange. 6 months ago, she'd been just another astronaut with a background in exobiology, but when the Luraxi made contact, everything changed. The docking sequence completed with a gentle shudder through the shuttle's frame. Maya took a deep breath, adjusted her formal diplomatic uniform, and moved toward the airlock. The decontamination protocols had been agreed upon weeks earlier through digital communications, but nothing could prepare her for what waited on the other side. As the airlock cycled open, Maya found herself face to face with Krith, the Luraxi diplomatic envoy. Krith stood approximately Maya's height, with iridescent blue-green skin that seemed to shimmer with subtle patterns. Their large, almond-shaped eyes were a striking amber color, set in a face that was undeniably alien yet had a strange, compelling beauty. Where humans had hair, Krith had delicate, feather-like structures that shifted colors with their movements. Ambassador Bennett, Krith spoke, their voice melodious with an undertone that reminded Maya of wind chimes. I welcome you to this historic meeting between our peoples. Maya smiled, feeling oddly at ease despite the alienness of the being before her. Thank you, Envoy Krith. I bring greetings from Earth and hopes for a productive alliance. Over the next weeks, Maya and Krith spent countless hours together, establishing protocols for the first permanent Earth embassy on the Luraxi orbital station. What began as formal diplomatic sessions gradually evolved into something more personal. Your species' music is fascinating, Krith commented one evening as they shared a meal in the station's neutral zone. The mathematics behind it resembles our own harmonic traditions, yet diverges in unexpected ways. Maya laughed. I'm terrible at math. I just know what moves me. She pulled up a playlist on her tablet. This is what I listen to when I miss Earth's oceans. Krith's skin rippled with patterns of curiosity as the jazz melody filled the room. May I? They asked, reaching toward Maya's hand. When their fingers touched, Maya felt a slight tingling sensation, Krith's natural bioelectric field interacting with her skin. She didn't pull away. Our species communicates emotions through bioelectric fields, Krith explained softly. I can't read your feelings this way, but I hoped you might sense mine. The tingling intensified, bringing with it a wave of warmth that Maya couldn't explain through biology alone. She met Krith's amber eyes. I think I do. Their relationship developed in small moments, shared discoveries about each other's cultures, private jokes about the peculiarities of diplomatic protocols, lingering glances when they thought no one was watching. The attraction was undeniable, if unprecedented. 3 months into the embassy establishment, Maya realized she had fallen in love with Krith. The realization came during a joint spacewalk to install the final components of the Earth Embassy's communication array. As they worked together against the backdrop of stars, Maya found herself mesmerized by the way starlight reflected off Krith's skin, by the grace of their movements in zero gravity. Is something wrong, Maya? Krith asked, noticing her distraction. Maya shook her head within her helmet. No, nothing's wrong. I just realized something important. What is that? I'm breaking all the protocols right now, she said with a nervous laugh, but I think I'm falling in love with you. Krith floated closer, their spacesuit nearly touching hers. Then we are both breaking protocols. Because I have felt the same since the day you arrived. As Earth rotated below them, surrounded by the endless expanse of space, Maya and Krith acknowledged what they had both known for weeks, that something beautiful and unprecedented had begun between them, a connection that transcended the vast differences of their origins. Neither could have predicted the challenges that awaited them, or how their love would eventually push the boundaries of both human and Luraxi science to create something entirely new. Maya traced her fingers along Krith's arm, following the subtle bioluminescent patterns that rippled beneath their skin. In the dim light of her quarters on the space station, the soft blue glow created dancing shadows across the walls. 3 months had passed since their confession during the spacewalk, and their relationship had blossomed despite the complications of interspecies romance. "Your heart rate increases when I do this," Krith observed, their voice a gentle melody in the quiet room. The Luraxi could sense bioelectric fields, making them acutely aware of Maya's physiological responses. "That's because you make me happy," Maya replied, leaning in to press her forehead against Krith's in what had become their intimate gesture of affection. Direct kissing had proven challenging due to different facial structures, but they discovered their own ways to express physical affection. Their moments together had become precious as they navigated the uncharted territory of human Luraxi intimacy. They'd found unexpected compatibilities. Krith's touch receptors were highly sensitive along their spine, while their feather-like cranial structures would change to vibrant purples and reds when they were aroused. Maya had learned to read these signals, just as Krith had learned to interpret human responses. But as their relationship deepened, both began to contemplate a future together. It was during one such conversation that the fundamental challenge of their union became unavoidable. On Luraxi Prime, bonded pairs often create offspring after several cycles together, Krith said hesitantly one evening. "I find myself wondering if that would ever be possible for us." The question hung in the air between them. Maya had been pondering the same thing but had avoided bringing it up. "I think we need expert advice," Maya finally said. "I know a xenobiologist who might help us understand our options, if you're comfortable with that." 2 weeks later, they sat in the video conferencing room of the space station, facing Dr. Eleanor Vega, Earth's leading xenobiologist. Maya had studied under her during her training and trusted her discretion. "I've analyzed the genetic profiles you both provided," Dr. Vega began, her expression serious. "I want to be straightforward with you. The fundamental structures of your DNA, or in Krith's case, the Luraxi equivalent, are profoundly different. Human DNA uses a double helix with 4 nucleotide bases. The Luraxi genetic structure uses a triple helix system with 7 base components." Maya reached for Krith's hand. "What does that mean for us, practically speaking?" "Natural reproduction between your species is biologically impossible," Dr. Vega stated bluntly. "Your genetic materials cannot combine through any known natural process." Krith's skin dulled slightly, the bioluminescent patterns fading, a sign of sadness that Maya had come to recognize. However, Dr. Vega continued, her tone shifting, "Biology has its limits, but technology might offer possibilities. There's experimental research in xenogenetic recombination that could potentially bridge these differences." "What kind of research?" Maya asked, feeling a flicker of hope. "A colleague of mine, Darius Kim, has been developing synthetic genomic interfaces, essentially, molecular translators that could potentially allow 2 incompatible genetic systems to communicate. Combined with artificial gestation technology, it's theoretically possible to create a viable embryo from your genetic materials." Krith's skin brightened again. "This technology exists?" "In early experimental stages," Dr. Vega cautioned. "It hasn't been tested for anything like this. But if you're serious about exploring this possibility, I can arrange a meeting with Dr. Kim." After the call ended, Maya and Krith sat in silence for several minutes, processing what they'd learned. "Would your people accept such a child?" Maya finally asked. "A hybrid created through technology?" Krith's cranial feathers shifted thoughtfully. "Luraxi society values genetic diversity. Our history includes genetic engineering to adapt to different environments on colony worlds. But a human Luraxi child would be unprecedented." They paused. "Would your people accept it?" Maya laughed without humor. Humans have a complicated history with differences. Some will embrace it, others will fear it. Are you willing to face that fear? For us? Krith asked softly. Maya looked into Krith's amber eyes, feeling the depth of their connection that had grown despite every obstacle. Some things are worth fighting for. If there's even a chance we could create a family together, I want to try. Krith's skin glowed brighter than Maya had ever seen, patterns swirling in what she recognized as joy. Then we shall become pioneers of the heart, as well as of space. They arranged a leave of absence from their diplomatic duties and prepared to return to Earth. As their shuttle departed from the space station, Maya gazed at the stars stretching endlessly before them. She didn't know if the experimental technology would work or what challenges awaited them on Earth, but she knew with certainty that the being beside her, so different and yet so deeply connected to her, was worth every risk. Their love had already crossed the void between worlds. Perhaps, with science's help, it could now create a bridge between their very genetic codes, turning the impossible into possibility. The Laboratory of Quantum Biogenetics sat nestled in the foothills outside of Seattle, its gleaming glass and steel structure reflecting the surrounding evergreen forest. For the past 4 months, this facility had become a second home to Maya and Krith as they worked alongside Dr. Darius Kim on what the media had begun calling the Genesis Project. The synthetic genomic interface is showing promising results, Dr. Kim explained, gesturing to the holographic display where complex molecular structures rotated and connected in a hypnotic dance. The scientist's eyes were rimmed with dark circles from countless late nights, but his enthusiasm remained undimmed. We've successfully translated 15% of Krith's genetic sequences into a format compatible with human DNA. Maya studied the display, her training in exobiology helping her grasp the fundamentals of what they were attempting, though much of the cutting-edge science remained beyond her expertise. How much do we need for viability? At least 60%, Dr. Kim replied. But I'm optimistic. The algorithmic progression suggests we'll reach that threshold within 6 weeks. Krith moved beside the apparatus that dominated the center of the lab, a sleek ovoid chamber approximately the size of a small refrigerator. Their feathery cranial structures shifted to a thoughtful blue-green as they traced the smooth surface with their fingers. The artificial gestation chamber itself is ready, Krith observed. It's only the genetic interface that remains unfinished. Yes, Dr. Kim confirmed. The chamber incorporates both human amniotic simulation and the chemical environment of a Luraxi hatching pod. It's designed to adapt to the developing embryo's needs in real time. Maya joined Krith at the chamber, slipping her hand into her partner's. The machine represented their hopes for a family, a technological miracle that might bridge the vast biological differences between them. She felt a swell of emotion as she imagined what might grow within it, a child with perhaps Krith's iridescent skin and her human eyes, or some beautiful combination they couldn't yet envision. Have you decided which genetic traits you wish to prioritize? Dr. Kim asked, bringing Maya back to the present moment. It was a question they had discussed extensively in private. Which characteristics would give their child the best chance at a healthy life? Which aspects of human and Luraxi biology would complement rather than conflict? We've prepared a list, Krith said, activating their personal data pad. We wish to balance functional adaptation with cultural heritage from both our species. As Krith shared their preferences with Dr. Kim, Maya's attention was drawn to a notification on her own device, another news alert about their project. She hesitated before opening it, knowing the mixed reactions their relationship and research had provoked. The headline made her wince: human-alien hybrid, scientific breakthrough or unnatural experiment. Below it, a split-screen image showed protesters outside the laboratory gates alongside supporters carrying signs reading, "Love Beyond Boundaries." Another hit piece? Krith asked softly, noting Maya's expression. Just the usual, she replied, trying to sound unconcerned as she switched off the device. Nothing we haven't seen before. But the public scrutiny was taking its toll. What had begun as a private journey had become increasingly public as news of their relationship and the technological solution they sought spread through both human and Luraxi information networks. Dr. Kim cleared his throat. I should mention that the Ethics Committee is meeting again tomorrow. They've requested both of your presence. Maya sighed. This would be the third review since the project began. While initial approvals had been granted, each step forward brought renewed scrutiny. We'll be there, she assured him. We've become quite good at defending our choices. Later that evening, in their small apartment near the research facility, Maya and Krith prepared dinner together, a ritual they'd established to maintain normalcy amid the scientific and social challenges they faced. I received a message from the Luraxi High Council today, Krith mentioned as they chopped vegetables for a meal that incorporated elements of both their dietary needs. They've expressed concerns about our project. Maya paused, knife hovering over a bell pepper. What kind of concerns? Cultural dilution. Unpredictable genetic outcomes. The usual arguments against change. Krith's skin dimmed slightly. Some elders believe I am betraying our genetic heritage by seeking to combine it with human DNA. Maya set down her knife and moved to embrace Krith from behind, pressing her cheek against their back. She felt the subtle bioelectric tingle of their skin, a sensation she had grown to love. We knew not everyone would understand, she murmured. But we're not erasing either heritage, we're creating something new while honoring both. Krith turned in her arms, their amber eyes meeting hers. The greatest leaps in both our civilizations' histories came from those willing to challenge boundaries. Whether spatial, technological, or, they touched Maya's face tenderly, emotional. Maya smiled, feeling the truth of Krith's words. Their love had already transcended astronomical distances and biological differences. The technological hurdles they now faced were just another boundary to overcome. A chime from Dr. Kim interrupted their moment, a message with the latest test results attached. They reviewed it together, and for the first time in weeks, felt genuine optimism surge through them. 30% compatibility achieved, Maya read aloud, her voice trembling slightly with excitement. Breakthrough in protein translation mechanisms. Krith's skin illuminated with joy, patterns swirling in complex mathematics that reflected their emotions. We're halfway there. As they celebrated this small victory, the artificial gestation chamber in the lab continued its silent preparation, waiting to nurture the unprecedented life that would represent not just the union of two beings who loved each other, but the potential for a new understanding between two vastly different species and the worlds they called home. The rain fell in sheets across the Seattle landscape, drumming against the window of the small conference room where Maya and Krith sat facing the 7-member ethics committee. The atmosphere inside matched the gloomy weather, tense and heavy with unspoken concerns. The committee acknowledges the scientific merit of Dr. Kim's breakthrough, said Dr. Valentina Ortiz, the chairperson, her voice carefully neutral. However, we must consider the broader implications before authorizing the final phase of the Genesis project. Maya fought to keep her expression composed. After 8 months of development, they were so close, the genetic interface had reached 73% compatibility, exceeding their target threshold. Only bureaucratic approval stood between them and the activation of the artificial gestation chamber. What specific concerns remain unaddressed? Krith asked, their skin maintaining a deliberate calm blue despite their inner turmoil. They had learned that dramatic color shifts during these hearings were often interpreted as emotional instability by humans unaccustomed to Luraxi physiological responses. Dr. Ortiz glanced at her colleagues before responding. There are 3 primary issues: long-term health projections for the child, societal integration challenges, and the precedent this would set for future interspecies reproduction. A silver-haired man at the end of the table leaned forward. To be blunt, Ms. Bennett and Envoy Krith, we're concerned about bringing a child into existence who may suffer from unforeseen medical complications and who may never truly belong in either human or Luraxi society." Maya felt her patience fraying. "With respect, Dr. Powell, we've submitted extensive projections on potential health outcomes. The adaptive capabilities we've programmed into the gestation chamber. Technical solutions don't address social realities," interrupted another committee member. "The demonstrations outside this very facility prove that point." The protests had grown larger in recent weeks, with religious groups, species purists, and bioethicists on one side, and supporters of interspecies rights and scientific progress on the other. Just yesterday, security had intercepted a package containing a disabled explosive device addressed to Dr. Kim's laboratory. "Our child will have challenges," Krith acknowledged, their voice steady. "But what child doesn't? History has shown that society eventually adapts to what once seemed unimaginable." Before anyone could respond, the door burst open. Dr. Kim rushed in, ignoring protocol completely. "I apologize for the interruption," he said breathlessly, "but there's something you all need to see." He activated the wall screen, revealing a news broadcast. A Luraxi diplomatic shuttle had landed at the international spaceport, and disembarking was Elder Thelvier, Krith's parental guardian and a high-ranking member of the Luraxi Council. Krith's skin flashed with surprise before they could control their reaction. "My parent is here? They didn't inform me." The committee meeting adjourned amid the confusion, and hours later, Maya found herself sitting across from Elder Thelvier in a private dining room at their hotel. The elder's skin was paler than Krith's, with more complex patterns that signified their age and status. "You have created quite a stir across two worlds," Elder Thelvier said after formal introductions had been exchanged. Their gaze moved between Krith and Maya with an inscrutable expression. "We didn't intend to become symbols," Maya replied carefully. "We simply want what many couples want, a family." "At the expense of genetic purity? Of cultural tradition?" The elder's skin rippled with what Maya recognized as skepticism. "Many on our homeworld believe this hybrid creation would diminish our evolutionary heritage." Krith's feathers stiffened slightly, a sign of respectful disagreement that Maya had come to recognize. "Parent, our species has always valued diversity. Our colonial adaptations were controlled, measured changes within our own genetic framework," Elder Thelvier countered. "This is something else entirely." The conversation continued in this vein, tense but civil, until Elder Thelvier finally asked to speak with Krith alone. Maya reluctantly agreed, leaving the two Luraxi to converse in their native language. She paced in the hotel corridor, watching through glass doors as rain continued to pound the city. Her communication device buzzed with a message from Dr. Kim: "Protesters breached outer security perimeter. Lab under lockdown. Prototype secure." Maya closed her eyes, exhaustion washing over her. They had known this path wouldn't be easy, but the constant fight was wearing them down. Sometimes, in quiet moments, she questioned whether they were being selfish, bringing a child into a world that might not be ready to accept them. After what felt like hours, the door opened, and Krith emerged. Their skin was glowing with an intensity Maya hadn't seen before. "What happened?" she asked anxiously. "My parent asked why I would choose this difficult path when I could return home and bond with another Luraxi," Krith explained. "I showed them." "Showed them what?" "Our connection." Krith took Maya's hands in theirs. "Luraxi can share emotional states through bioelectric fields. It's rare, but possible, to temporarily extend this connection to other species through deep meditation. I shared with them what I feel when I'm with you." Maya's breath caught. "And? They understand now?" "Not completely, but enough." Krith's eyes shimmered with emotion. "They've agreed to address the Luraxi Council on our behalf and advocate for acceptance of our child among our people." For the first time in weeks, hope flickered to life in Maya's chest. "One world down, one to go," she said with a small smile. The next morning brought unexpected support from another quarter. Dar. Ortiz contacted them personally to report that overnight, the ethics committee had received thousands of messages from supporters around the world, scientists, rights advocates, and ordinary people moved by their story. "Public opinion is shifting," she told them. "And with it, our perspective. The committee has decided to approve the final phase of the project, with continued monitoring." As they returned to the laboratory that afternoon, flanked by supporters who formed a protective barrier against the remaining protesters, Maya and Krith walked hand in hand. The artificial gestation chamber awaited them, its systems humming with potential. "Are you ready?" Dr. Kim asked as they entered the secure inner lab. Maya looked at Krith, seeing in their alien features the love that had carried them through every obstacle. Some would never accept what they were creating together, but enough had opened their hearts and minds to possibility. "We're ready," they answered in unison. The artificial gestation chamber hummed softly in the corner of their living room, its gentle blue glow casting warm shadows across the walls. Maya sat on the couch, her tablet forgotten in her lap as she gazed at the device that had changed everything. Inside, suspended in a carefully calibrated environment, grew their child, a miracle of science and love that defied biological impossibility. "The readings are strong today," Krith said, entering the room with 2 steaming mugs. Their skin rippled with patterns of joy as they handed Maya her coffee and sat beside her. Dr. Kim's morning report indicates stable development across all major systems. Maya smiled, accepting the mug gratefully. 3 more weeks until emergence day. I can hardly believe it. After receiving final approval, they had moved the prototype chamber to their new home, a modified dwelling on the outskirts of Seattle that incorporated elements of both human and Luraxi architecture. Curved walls and unconventional spaces accommodated Krith's preference for nonlinear environments, while standard human amenities remained for Maya's comfort. Large windows overlooked the Pacific Northwest forest, providing the privacy they needed in these final stages. Krith placed a hand on the chamber's smooth exterior. Through specialized sensors, they could perceive the faint bioelectric field of the developing child within, a connection that Maya envied but celebrated as a unique bond between Krith and their offspring. "They're dreaming," Krith said softly, wonder filling their voice. "The neural patterns have matured enough to produce sleep cycles." Maya moved to join them, pressing her palm against the chamber beside Krith's iridescent hand. She couldn't sense the bioelectric fields, but the regular heartbeat was visible on the monitoring display, faster than a human's but with a rhythm reminiscent of her own. "What do you think they dream about?" she asked. "Stars? Oceans? Both?" "Perhaps they dream of meeting us," Krith suggested, their amber eyes meeting Maya's. "Of the world waiting for them." That world had changed dramatically over the past year. What had begun as their personal journey had sparked a global and interstellar conversation about the nature of family, the boundaries of science, and the future of human-alien relations. While resistance remained in some quarters, public opinion had shifted toward cautious acceptance, even curiosity. The Luraxi Council, influenced by Elder Thelvier's advocacy, had formally recognized their child's right to citizenship on Luraxi Prime. Earth's United Nations had followed suit after intense debate, establishing a new legal framework for interspecies families. Universities around the world had established research programs focused on xenogenetic medicine in anticipation of the child's unique healthcare needs. "I received a message from Ami and Jylan today," Maya mentioned, referring to another human Luraxi couple who had contacted them 6 months ago. "They've begun preliminary consultations with Dr. Kim's team." Krith's feathers shifted to a pleased lavender. "The second pioneers have an easier journey than the first." A soft chime from the chamber interrupted their conversation, a routine notification indicating a developmental milestone had been reached. Maya tapped the display, bringing up a three-dimensional image of their child. The hologram revealed a being unlike any that had existed before. The basic humanoid form showed clear influence from both species. Delicate, feathery structures crowned the head, resembling Krith's but with a more hair-like quality. The skin had a subtle iridescence, not as pronounced as a full Luraxi's but with definite patterning capabilities. The face blended features from both parents in a harmony that seemed perfectly natural despite its unprecedented nature. "They're beautiful," Maya whispered, emotion catching in her throat. "And healthy," added Dr. Eleanor Vega's voice as she entered a video call on their main screen. The xenobiologist had become a dear friend throughout their journey. All markers indicate successful integration of both genetic systems. The adaptive immune response is particularly impressive. They discussed the latest medical data, the preparation timeline for Emergence Day, and finalized plans for the specialized pediatric team that would monitor the child's early development. After the call ended, Krith noticed Maya had grown quiet, her expression pensive. "What troubles you, beloved?" they asked, their skin shifting to a concerned pattern. Maya sighed, looking around their home, at the nursery they had prepared with elements from both cultures, at the books in 2 languages waiting to be read, at the symbolic artifacts from Earth and Luraxi Prime that would help teach their child about their dual heritage. "I was just thinking about everything we've been through to get here. The protests, the hearings, the threats." She paused, meeting Krith's gaze. "Was it selfish of us to bring a child into a world that might not be ready? To make them a symbol before they've even taken their first breath?" Krith considered this thoughtfully, their feathers shifting through several colors before settling on a calm azure. "Perhaps it would have been more selfish not to. Throughout history, it is the children who bridge worlds that help those worlds understand each other better." They moved to the window together, looking out at the stars beginning to appear in the evening sky. Somewhere up there, the Luraxi homeworld orbited its distant sun, just as Earth circled its own, separate worlds connected now by more than just diplomacy. "Besides," Krith added, "they will not face the challenges alone. They will have us, and the community we've built." That community had grown remarkably. Scientists who had worked on the project, supporters who had advocated for them, other interspecies couples inspired by their journey, all had become an extended family of sorts, committed to ensuring their child would thrive. The chamber chimed again, this time with an unexpected notification. Maya rushed over, concern flashing across her face until she read the display. "Krith," she called, excitement replacing worry. "The emergence timeline has accelerated. Gar. Kim's system predicts it could be as soon as 5 days from now." Krith joined her, their skin illuminating with such brightness that the room seemed suddenly filled with daylight. Their joy was palpable, an electric energy that Maya could feel even without Luraxi sensory abilities. "Then we must be ready," Krith said, their voice melodious with emotion. "Our child is eager to meet us." As night fell fully, they sat together beside the chamber, talking softly to the life growing within. They shared stories of their respective worlds, of how they had met among the stars, and of the future they envisioned, a future where the boundaries between species became bridges instead of barriers. In 5 days, a new being would join their family, not fully human, not fully Luraxi, but something wonderfully, perfectly unique. Their child would be the first of perhaps many, opening doors to possibilities that neither of their civilizations had imagined before. Outside their window, a shooting star streaked across the night sky, a fitting symbol for the brilliant new path they had blazed together, guided by nothing more or less than love's stubborn refusal to accept impossibility.